welcome to another edition of On the Air with Tim and Ken. Ken, good to see you.
Tim, it's great to be back for episode 4. Who thought we'd make it this far?
No, the odds were against us, so we definitely made the over. But I still got the fire going. That's the over-under. When do I shut that thing off? It's still cold up here.
I'm still in North Carolina, so it's a little warmer down here. No need for a fire.
No, it's going
80
to go
degrees
below.
over the weekend.
You're killing me.
So
It's going to be down to low 30s tonight, maybe below freezing, whatever. It's getting to be the middle of April too, so it has to change. So, but all right, we got a lot on the docket for tonight. But first, I've got to start with the disclaimers. Disclaimer again, and Ken, jump in on that. So, folks, we appreciate your input, that you're taking time to watch this. But remember, this is just us talking. Don't rely on this information. It's just for discussion only. Don't react to it in any special way. Don't make any actions as a result of it, but just enjoy it.
yeah, we're gonna make Masters predictions tonight. Don't go bet on them.
Yeah.
I had St. John's winning the NCAA men's title. They didn't get very far, so but look, we appreciate everybody for tuning in for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And sharing some time with us. We've really enjoyed doing this, and we hope to continue doing it.
Yeah, we just want to change up what you see on TV and YouTube a lot and get back to things that we really like. So hopefully you'll enjoy it too. So tonight what we're going to talk about is I'm going to do a little bit of a wrap up on that boring subject of interest rates, commercial real estate, and how that ties in. I think, Ken, you might have some information, some updates for us on
Yeah,
LIV
I mean, I
Golf.
think, yeah, we think we have relevant updates on stuff we previously discussed. We do want to keep it short. We'll provide some updates on LIV Golf and the sale of the Minnesota Timberwolves to Alex Rodriguez and his group, and NFL football games on Christmas Day. So, and what that's going to mean to everybody watching here.
Yeah, so we'll have those updates, really timely. And then we're going to get into something that we've been kind of previewing and we're looking forward to. We kind of get excited about it. And it's the Masters is coming up this week. So we'll have a good segment that we'll call on Masters by the numbers. And Ken's actually going to do a piece. I don't know how he's going to do it. He's going to tie in the 6,000 pages of the tax code into the Masters. So I can't wait to hear that. But so the pressure's on you there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tax rule that's referred to as the Augusta Rule, and it really is based on the Masters Golf Tournament. So we'll talk a little bit about that
Great.
Later in the show.
All right, good. And then we'll wrap things up and see where they go. But first, I want to get back to the commercial real estate that we talked about and the interest rates. Talked a little bit about how the interest rates, as everybody knows, they went down during COVID, 3-4%, even in commercial. And as we talked about, they typically reset every 5 years, more or less, some 3, some 5, some 7. And we're seeing those resets happening now in the industry across the country. And this year we'll see about $1 trillion resetting in that marketplace, a huge number. So that's going to have a huge impact on those borrowers and the lenders who take that risk and lend that money. So in the loan documents that very few read, unless you're really paying attention, the lenders put loan covenants in there. And really what that means is, in addition to repaying the loan, keeping it insured, borrowers, you have to make certain ratios, meet ratios every year. Otherwise, the lender can put you into default, believe it or not. You could be making your payments on time, everything's going along, and all of a sudden you get a letter from your lender that you're in default. Now, Ken, you mentioned that throughout the tax year, you get calls from your clients all the time.
Yeah, so I was for the last 16 years, no longer doing it, but working in a public accounting firm, and we dealt with small businesses, and all the time we'd get called. We need a copy of our tax returns, our business tax returns. We have lending agreements, and the bank wants this, and I'm calling and yelling at Tim, even though we had no similar clients. But
Right.
and then you send them extensions because they haven't even given you the December financials yet. And then they're already looking for the current year numbers, and they haven't sent you that either, So it is, I'm more than familiar with being on the other side of that, getting those requests,
Yep.
And definitely this time of year it's challenging, as a lot of my colleagues right now are still battling the April 15th deadline.
And then when the lenders get those financials, whether they're financial year-end financial statements or actual tax returns, what the lenders do is they underwrite the loan again, like it's a brand new loan. They run the numbers, and unlike your 30-year residential mortgage rates, that you kind of take out once, make your payments, and never think about it again. The commercial folks, they're always being underwritten every year for an annual review, and that's when they run the numbers again. So you could be going along, running your properties and all that, and everything's fine, making your payments, and all of a sudden you get a letter from your lender, hey, you're in default. You didn't meet a debt service coverage ratio covenant. And you're saying, what the heck is that? And as a result of that, we're going to raise your rate from 6% up 5 points to 11%. So that's a huge impact in addition to just the cost. You may be in breach of a covenant that you weren't really paying attention to. And now you're scrambling to cure that because now your rate just went to 11%. So to put it in perspective, real simple, if your annual debt service, your annual interest payments, mortgage payments are $10,000 a year, and your net operating income from the business of the property after paying all the salaries and all the expenses is $12,000 a year, that's a 1.2 ratio. That's a standard in the industry. It could be more, it could be less. But as a borrower, you're not necessarily paying attention to that unless you're a very sophisticated borrower. You're not running those ratios every year. So it could be 1.19 and technically you're in default, and they may call you on it. So that's another big thing to look at with these, not just the cost of the money going higher automatically. It could trigger a default. And again, you've made all the payments, you've been making payments. So we'll see what happens there too. And that brings up a lot
And
of
on the accounting side, what's going to happen on my side, my former side is my client is going to set, apply for loans at 10 different banks,
yeah,
trying to get a lower rate, so it creates a whole lot more work for your accountant, because the tax returns you sent them a week ago, they can no longer find, you got to keep sending, and sometimes we have to get on the call with the banks and answer, questions that are right there in front of them. But
yeah,
it does create a lot of work on the tax side too, especially in a situation like this where nobody wants to pay
yes,
a higher rate. And
right,
and
right. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's another big thing that you don't hear much about in the news. It's kind of dry, but it's more important, or just as important as the rates going higher. Could be another trigger there. But that boring stuff aside, I want to get into the fun stuff. Ken, I think you have some updates for us on LIV Golf.
yeah, so LIV Golf, which is the golf league owned by the Saudi Investment Fund, and they've been trying to work to get into the business with the PGA Tour, and there's been meetings and discussions. And within the last week or so, they made an offer of $1.5 billion to the PGA Tour, but they wanted to keep the two tours separate. They wanted like their cake and eat it too. LIV Golf has a team concept as part of their tour. They wanted to keep part of that. And currently the PGA Tour has rejected that offer, that they want there to be one tour, that they're open to some kind of team concept, but they don't want there to be two separate tours. They want there to be one tour. And so that's kind of, you're going to start seeing more with the Masters and the majors coming up.
Yeah,
So that's the update on that. There was also getting back into the NBA ownership. Alex Rodriguez, who I'm sure most of you know, is a former Yankee and baseball player, and now business owner. Him and a partnership group had agreed in 2021 to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves of the NBA, at a valuation of $1.5 billion, which is obviously a lot less than the $6 billion that the Celtics are
right.
going for. It was
Same,
kind of
same
a little bit
league.
of a unique deal, that it was going to be an installment sale over 3 years, with it being in purchases in 22, 23, and 24. There were some disputes in 2024 between the two sides, and the current ownership tried to, get out of the deal. They went to arbitration, and the arbitrators held that Alex Rodriguez and his ownership did, do things correctly, and they're not going to be the new owners subject to the NBA approval. And that team has already been valued at $3 billion. So he's already made 100% of a return. And, I did read an article or two that, where the former Minnesota Timberwolves owners kind of saw where the valuations were going on some of these sales, and maybe they wanted to, renegotiate the deal.
Yeah, you saw the Celtics deal and you say, whoa, whoa, time out, different market now. Yeah.
Yeah, and it raises the question: was the Celtics? Did they pay way too much? Is it, you know, is that value just a crazy high? I mean, it is crazy high, but did they pay too much? And is the T-Wolves, I know it's not the same market as Boston as far as, name and trademark and
Mhm.
name recognition, and but still, there's the big gap. And then, one of the topics I keep an eye on is the NFL announced on Christmas Day there will be three NFL games, two on Netflix and one on Amazon. And I'm sure most of you are saying, why should I care? Because if you have Netflix and if you have Amazon, you're paying for those games, whether you watch them or not.
Yeah.
The media sports is big dollar money, and Netflix and Amazon's got to figure a way to pass that on to you, whether you watch them or not. It's,
So as of now, they won't
we'll
be on
do,
network TV then. They'll be on, you have to be on one of those.
they'll be on one of the streaming services,
Yeah.
right? And you may say, well, I don't watch it, but Amazon, I think both Amazon and Netflix started off as commercial free. And now that if you want it commercial free, you got to pay more. Otherwise you got to watch commercials. So, those streaming services are going to continue to go up. They're going to continue to, push the limits of what
Mhm.
people will spend on these. There's no dollar amount associated with them, but, you know, they're not doing it unless the NFL is getting paid big dollars, and
Yeah.
that's all coming from the subscribers. So,
Yeah. So if you don't have Netflix or Amazon, you're going to want to put that on your Christmas list and get it early.
right.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck under the Christmas tree all day. So,
No, I mean, you're right. Like Thanksgiving, right? Like Thanksgiving is the NFL day, right?
yeah.
On network television, right? And is that going to be the next domino to fall, that's going to go to a streaming, right? We grew up and the NFL was on, you know,
Hmm.
network television on Thanksgiving, whether anybody watched it or not. But
Right.
just something to keep an eye on, that even if you're not a sports fan, and I've had several people reach out and say, you do too much sports business. Why this doesn't impact me? If you're a Netflix owner, if you're a Netflix subscriber, it's going to impact you. You're going to pay for it. And
Yep.
same with Amazon. You're going to pay for it, and so that's why you
Interesting.
should care, and
Yeah.
keep
It's
an
all
eye on
tied
it.
in. Yeah. Good. Thanks for those updates. What we've been dying to talk about for a couple of weeks is finally upon us. We get the Masters this week. We're going to have about 90 guys teeing off. I think it's the top 50 make the cut, 50 in ties, and they're going to go for that prize green jacket and a nice purse of over $3 million. So, what can you add to before I get into some of my numbers?
I mean, it's my favorite one. I think it's, probably my favorite sporting event of the year. It's probably the one I'll make arrangements to watch, regardless of what else is going on. It's kind of the beginning of spring.
Yeah.
If you're a golf fan and you've ever watched the Masters, there's just something about it. There's just something that attracts you to it. It's usually, the weather's beautiful in Georgia that time of year. And it's really a risk reward golf course,
Yes.
and a lot of water in play. So, scores can change. Par fives reachable in two, scores can change quickly. It's really, there's just something special about it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I've got some numbers here, so I've got to read some of these. But the purse for the players is about 20 million, from what I understand. Now, what's interesting about this tournament, as you know, it's on TV for hours on end, uninterrupted, and yet they have phenomenal revenue. About 140, it's estimated about 140 million dollars of revenue. Primarily, remember, this is a 4-day tournament, unlike the LIV events, and then you have the Wednesday and Tuesday, whatever that amounts to be. But I'll give you a breakdown from what I could find on the revenue streams. Ticket sales, 39 million. Merchandise, 70 million. What else do we have here? those were the two big ones. So you had I'm sorry, concessions was always up there around 10 million. So you had merchandise being 70 million and tickets 40 million. And then there was some other things, but in sponsorship. And there really only are, when you watch the Masters, like I said, there's uninterrupted. So from what I could find, you have very limited sponsors, and it seemed like there was a staple of 5 or 6 of them. And I think they might have added 1 or 2. The big companies: AT&T, Delta, IBM, Rolex, UPS, Mercedes, and they all pay. No one know. I don't know exactly, but you're in the $5 to $7 to $8 million each to be sponsors, to be affiliated with that. But like you said, Ken, that brand, that Masters brand, is incredible. It's a private course. They put it all together themselves. We guess what their revenue is. We think we have an idea of what their revenue is. We don't really know what they make, but it seems to be extremely profitable.
It is a unique brand, and it's probably the hardest ticket to get in sports, right?
Yep.
We've tried for years to try to get tickets, and you can't get them. And I remember the first real Masters I remember was '86, and I was at Quinnipiac, and we were in the suites, and one of my suite mates was watching, and he's like, "Nicholas is making a run," and they were
Yep.
just, that's when Jack won in '86, and there's just something, if you're a golf fan, there's just something special about that place, and looking forward to it. The weather's supposed to be, looks like it's supposed to be pretty nice for the weekend. And they always say you'll hear it all week. The tournament doesn't start until the back nine
On
on
Sunday afternoon.
Sunday, and it's so true. And
So I think they have about
it's just a fun
40,000.
event.
I think they have about 40,000 fans per day, Thursday through Sunday, and they generate that kind of revenue. It's a phenomenal brand. It's a phenomenal tournament. And think about it. I was looking at something. The course is this is off the beaten path, but the course is only assessed at like 200 million. That's a lot of money, but assessed. But if you look at like a Pebble Beach, that's in the billions. So this course is somewhat in the middle of nowhere, but yet it's such a phenomenal course and a phenomenal layout, and the reputation. It's got an incredible following. It's really unique. It really is. They've done a phenomenal job there. Every player wants to win there. Every fan wants to go there. I always look for the prices by scalpers, and it's well over $5,000 a ticket if you can. There was one or something at that price. So remember, the face value is 140. So
It's the scalper, right? Like
I don't know where you stay or how you get there, but if you can get there, I guess you get in your car and you get down there or get up there. But I want to hear your story about the tax code and how this ties in.
So there is a little known tax code around, it's called on Section 280A, which allows, and this was really put in place for the Masters Golf Tournament, which allows homeowners to rent out their home for up to 14 days and not have to report the income as rental income. It's kind of like, it has to be your primary resident. The rental income you would charge has to be at a fair market value rate. But it was really, because of where the Masters Golf Tournament is, and the lack of, housing and stuff, and
Yeah.
the people would rent out their houses and still do. And so it was, your home can't be used for business at all. So it's got to be your primary residence. And I've never seen it used, but I've also read that, if you're a small business owner and that you could rent out, say if you have a board of directors meeting at your house, that, you could use your business to pay rent to yourself, and this would also qualify. So you get the tax deduction on the business side, but if it's under 14 days, you don't have to pick up the income on your individual side. Now, again, it would have to be fair market value. Your house has to be your primary residence. It can't be your second home or a third home. But, think of where all these pro golfers are probably staying, and the rents they're probably paying, to and then you don't have to pay any taxes on it.
Yeah.
If you were to go to 15 days and all of a sudden you got to file a Schedule E and report the income and figure out how to depreciate your house, and it just becomes a tax nightmare, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. That's
mostly for the
fascinating.
tax preparer. But it's an interesting story, and I haven't seen it used too often. Um, but it is under Section 280A, and there's plenty of literature on it. You know, we're not the
Tax code's over
authoritative.
6,000 pages, and that's
Go
buried
back
in
to our
there.
disclaimer. Go back to our disclaimer. We're not responsible for this.
Right. And I'm not an accountant, so, but
But there's
it's,
plenty of literature. Um, but like think of, when I'm in the New York area, like if you're on Long Island and the Ryder Cup's going to come to Bethpage Black, and the amount of people that are there, if you wanted to rent your house out for, a week or two in the fall,
yeah.
you could probably make some decent money.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you didn't, Airbnb, it seems to be affordable until you get the Airbnb fees, which is then 50% of what you rate. So you could undercut Airbnb and not have to report anything, if you had someplace to go and some other place to go during that time frame.
It must have
So
been interesting back in the day when Congress negotiated that and who brought that to the table and how that get done. But there you go, America. That's how things get
there
done,
you
I guess.
go.
So some
That's
things never
US
change.
tax law.
Yeah. All
Hey,
right.
master's prediction.
Well, I want to hear from you first on that, and hopefully I won't have the same pick as you. I'm kind of going not off the board, but not with one of the top two. So who do
I'm
you
gonna
like?
go with I'm gonna go with Ludwig Aberg.
Well,
He's
no
a
lie,
Swedish
that's
golfer.
what I was going to pick.
All right, do you
So
want me to pick somebody else? I
no,
got
go
I got
ahead.
a, I got a plan B.
Okay, I got a plan B too, but you stick with the Swedish gentleman.
I got the Swedish. I think he's missed his last two cuts, but he hits it high, he puts it well, and the
Yep.
other one that plays real well there is Cameron Smith, who's now on the LIV Tour.
Oh, that's
Won
that's
the the
interesting.
the he won the Open Championship a few years ago. Um, he always plays well at the Masters, so I think it's going to be one of those two.
All right, you got to help me out now. You throw me for a curve. Who was the Japanese player that won Morikawa?
Hideki Hideki Matsuri.
Yes, that's who I'll go with. That'd be
Okay.
my pick. I was going to pick the young guy, Swede. He's like you said, he's young guy. He's like 25 years old. He's in good form. I think was he runner up last year? I think he was
He was runner up last year,
runner up
yeah.
last year.
First Masters.
Yeah,
First Masters runner up.
fear, and he's he like you said, he's in a good form. But I'll go with a little bit of a seasoned veteran there. And what do you pick for a score? Winning score? How many under?
I think they're good. I think they're gonna. I think it's gonna be like 14. I think they're really
Wow.
gonna.
Wow.
I
I'm
think they're
gonna
gonna
go
go
a
at
little
it.
bit conservative. I'm gonna go 9 under, and that thing puts you at what 279 for a number total. So you're gonna go even lower than that.
I'm gonna go that they're gonna make a lot of birdies this week.
Wow.
You know,
The weather was. I
um,
did look. The weather does look good, and that's always that's great for the players and the fans. You like to see good conditions.
it's
Uh,
nice, but it's not real hot where it's gonna dry out. The greens are gonna dry out, so I think there'll be a lot of birdies this week, and plus
I have a tax question
so
for you before we wrap up.
yes,
There's a lot of talk about a new tax code coming out and tax cuts. I know it's speculative. We'll see how things play out, if at all. Overtime, no tax on overtime. If the player wins in sudden death on Monday, is that overtime? I'll leave you with that one. You accountants are pretty creative. You'll find a way to get that in and figure that out.
somebody will take that position. Let's put it that way.
All
With
right.
the amount of money that guy's gonna win, somebody's gonna take that position.
I think there'll be a lot of people rooting for Rory this weekend too. So
You'd love to see him get it done. He's been a great ambassador for the game. Yeah, I mean the thing, with Augusta and the galleries, they're gonna go, what makes it a little different, the galleries there is you hear the roars from some other part of the course, right? And you can't even focus on the putt in front of you or the shot in front of you because everybody's wondering what just happened. Did somebody eagle something, and I think that's part of it. It's the galleries at Augusta that are unique. And when you hear those roars at another part of the course, and you want them to leave the shot that they're about to show you to go show you what just happened. I think that's what kind of makes it special. But it's hopefully be a great tournament, and looking forward to it.
And we didn't really have much time to talk about. We got to wrap up. We didn't have much time or any time to talk about the NCAA tournament. We're kind of in the middle of we get the men's final tonight, and the ladies finish yesterday.
Yeah, I'm a big UConn women's fan. I've been following for over a decade. When one of the girls I used to watch play in high school was recruited and went to UConn back in like 2013. And then they've been on the New York Mets network since about that time. And not only do you see all their games, but they would do half-hour shows. GNRM and the staff would do half-hour shows, and they were just really behind the scenes entertaining, but also provide a lot of great information. And this year was the 40th year of Gino and CD and Paige Beckers, who has just been a great ambassador for the game. So for her to be able to close it out with her with a national championship it's a real special way. There's a lot of great talent on the female game now. But just for her to wrap it up with a win yesterday was really nice and special.
All right. Speaking of wrap it up, I think we're more than out of time. So, Ken, good to see you again. Enjoy the Masters.
Thanks, you too, Tim. Thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
We do really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.